Hey there.
Oh, hello there. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm good too. Thanks for asking. Oh, Lord.
My microphone is full of hair.
Well, because you have 5 cats, and when we podcast at your house, suction cup. Trust me, I'll put the podcast bag, we'll call it, with all of our equipment down in your house, and then I'll leave, and I was like,
did I take a cat with me?
did I grab the bag or did I grab a cat? I'm so confused.
Oh.
It's like, I don't get what's happening right now.
So I bought a beer I already know I like.
Yeah, so you got Founders All Day IPA.
Yeah, but it's been many a month since I've had it.
Yeah, I remember.
And I've only had it once.
And I remember you telling me it was a few months back. I don't remember how long, but
it's been a while.
You're like, I had this and I really liked it. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because again, I know you're not a huge like full on IPA person like I am,
right?
Per se, but this is Founders All Day IPA is a session IPA.
What does that mean?
So it's whenever you see session, especially when it refers to an IPA, it's a little more toned down, if you will.
Oh.
So the whole, at least being in the beer business like I used to be, my take on it was literally they want you to drink as many as possible in a session.
Sure. In a session. Okay.
Yeah. It's sessionable. So meaning you can have multiples and not. Because, like, if you had a torpedo, you could probably have one at best.
Oh, okay.
You personally.
Yeah.
Me, I could drink those all fucking day. I mean, I probably couldn't. I'd probably pass out. But either way, it's meant to be a little bit more kind of like toned back. So it's a little bit more, drink them more often, I guess. So
what did you pick up?
I currently am holding, and I'm about to open, a hard cider from Schilling Cider House. And they're based out of Washington State. Hold on. Yeah. It's nice. Shall we try it?
Yeah. My Founders All Day IPA is from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
It is.
And actually, Grand Rapids, coincidentally, is in my story a little bit.
Well,
that was unplanned.
That's fitting.
Yeah. Okay.
You got your beer. There it is. So, what is the ABV on a Founders?
Okay. I opened it, and now you're like, what is? Okay, 4.7.
Oh.
What's yours?
Mine's almost double. Maybe not quite double, but yes, getting close. Mine is 8.4. So mine is an Imperial Apple. It's called Excelsior Imperial Apple. 8.4% from Schilling Cider House. Let's give it a go, shall we?
I like my IPA. It's delish.
Oh, that is pretty good. I would never guess that's 8.4.
It's pretty smooth.
Yeah, and it's not like... I kind of like it because I'm a big actual just regular cider, not just the hard cider fan. And it's not overly sweet, which is nice. It's got a little bit to it, but no, it's really good.
I have a question for you.
Can you say it not so creepily?
I have a question for you.
Okay. You excelled at making it more creepy.
Have you ever ridden on a train before? Like a passenger train?
I want to say yes, but like an actual well, yeah, I've been on an Amtrak before.
Yeah. I've been on an Amtrak, yeah.
It's been a while. I mean, a long while. I don't recall when that would have been, but yeah, no, I have when I was younger.
Yeah.
A lot younger because Kate just said how old I am.
So Green Bay has this amazing railroad train museum.
Yeah.
And I took some pictures there. I'm not a great photographer or anything, But some of the pictures that I took of some of the steam engines there, I absolutely love.
Nice.
And I criticize my own work, you know.
Well, I criticize your work too, but yeah.
But these images are just so stunning in my mind. But the museum itself is fantastic.
How long ago did you take those?
Oh, it was pre-COVID, so probably 18 or 19.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's funny because you had mentioned that same train museum to the wife, and because of her dad.
Yeah.
Her dad is a huge train guy. He loves old trains too, especially.
Yeah.
And he likes going to the old museum, especially I don't remember the city. Do you remember the city she mentioned in Illinois he likes to go to? They have a train
DeKalb?
museum. Is it DeKalb? We're probably wrong. Or we're probably right. It's hard to say.
Yeah, but he lives in Wisconsin, so he probably has gone to the Green Bay Museum.
I would imagine he has, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he's a big train guy, and he loves going to those things. So,
well, speaking of your wife, Sarah.
Yes. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. She actually recommended today's story.
Yeah, she. We had mentioned in previous podcasts, we hope people reach out and give us some ideas that they're interested in that we can look into and talk about or whatever. And this one came from my wife.
Yeah, and she has lived a couple of different places, but
yes,
she's lived in the South particularly, or specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And she visited the location that I'm going to talk about. And she said that there was some pretty fascinating history about it. So
yeah, it's kind of funny because so normally how we go about these stories is I usually don't know what Kate's going to talk about, but because of the recommendation of the story from Sarah.
Yeah, because we were all together when she recommended it.
So I know of it, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated to learn some about this because the little bit that she told me, which I think she would have told me more, but didn't want to ruin the story, if you will, sounds very interesting and very
horrible,
messed up.
Yeah,
we'll say.
So she recommended we do an episode on a particular place. Mm-hmm. And what I like to do is try to find a human aspect to talk about in relation to a place or an event.
Correct.
So we are going to talk about James Ross Skaden.
James Ross Skaden?
Yep.
Okay.
So James Ross Skaden.
Why are you laughing, Kate?
Was born on December 12th, 1843.
Wow, all that time ago.
In Ulysses, New York.
Oh, that's pretty great.
He had two sisters.
Okay.
His parents ended up divorcing, and his mother, Margaret, remarried.
Oh.
And together they had 5 children.
So
7 altogether.
The mom's new husband and her had 5 more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow.
And they all lived
7 altogether, but didn't you say he had two sisters?
Yeah.
So then they had 5 more. Wouldn't that be 8?
8, yeah.
Okay.
So they all lived together in Yankee Springs, Michigan.
Where is that?
Michigan. And they were farmers.
Where in Michigan is Yankee Springs?
Hey, Google, where is Yankee Springs?
In Michigan.
In Michigan.
Oh, my word.
It is close to a town called Bradley.
Hey, that's me.
Hey, what do you know?
Not much. That's why we're here. Trying to learn.
So it is just south of Grand Rapids. So it's going to be like middle of the state, but like a little southwest. Okay. So they lived there in the 1860s, and that was when there was a lot of tension rising between the North and the South states.
Right.
And tensions were high as they were trying to expand to the West, and they couldn't decide whether the states were going to be slave states or not.
Sure.
So Southerners argued
Okay.
that based on the U.S. Constitution, slaves were considered property, and abolitionists were infringing on their states' rights.
Okay.
So the Constitution said that they prohibited Congress from outlawing the Atlantic slave trade for 20 years. And then there was a fugitive clause. A fugitive slave clause.
Okay.
That required the return of any runaway slave to their owners, no matter where they were, north or southern states.
Isn't that crazy?
The Constitution gave the federal government the power to put down domestic rebellions, including slave insurrections. And the Northerners argued that, quote, all men were created equal.
Well,
per the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, I mean, they're not wrong. That's unfortunate. Isn't that just wild that, like, this person is just trying to live a free life. They run away and be like, nope, you're my property. And
you have to go back.
We're going to send you back. It's like, no, man.
Yeah.
What the hell?
So the American Civil War started on April 12th, 1861.
Okay.
And James Skaden volunteered at 17 years old.
Wow.
And joined the cavalry.
Okay.
He was a part of the Second Michigan Regiment, Company C, in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Wow.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Grand Rapids.
Why are we cheers in Grand Rapids?
Because it was on my beer can.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, my bad. That's funny.
So he's in Company C. So there are 100 men in a company.
Okay.
And then 10 companies to a regiment.
So 1,000.
And then, so James's regiment had about 1,200 men, approximately.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so approximate, yeah.
Yeah.
So the cavalry units played a pivotal role in American Civil War.
Right.
They served as the eyes and the ears for the army.
Okay.
So their speed and mobility allowed them to perform several functions. So cavalry units were adept at scouting enemy positions.
I mean, that makes sense because they're on horses,
so
they can move in and out a little bit quicker than someone running around.
Yeah.
So, okay.
They would gather intelligence on troop movements and identify potential vulnerabilities.
Sure.
They acted as a protective shield for armies, screening them from the enemy observation and preventing surprise attacks.
Okay.
Cavalry units could conduct raids behind enemy lines, disrupting supply lines, destroying infrastructure, and demoralizing enemy forces.
That sounds fun.
And after a battle, cavalry units were often tasked with pursuing retreating enemy forces, preventing them from regrouping and inflicting further damage.
Yeah, I suppose it would be pretty easy for them to cut them off kind of thing because of being on horses and their speed with that. Okay, makes sense.
And in certain situations, cavalry units could charge into enemy lines, creating confusion and disrupting formations.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, the way they fought was basically in a lot of formations back then, which is wild when you watch old movies. And yes, they're not always historically accurate, but it's like, let's go in a straight line. Everybody line up. It's like, okay, you're all going to die, but cool.
Yeah.
That's just how they operated. So it's wild.
So James was 5'10", had blue eyes, sandy brown hair, and declared himself to be 18 to join the army.
Yeah, because he obviously had to lie.
He was 17, yeah.
Yep.
So he was to be paid $13 a month.
That's crazy.
It's about $410.
That's still terrible.
He was fully outfitted with a dark blue cavalry
There it is.
waistcoat, light blue pants, black knee boots, and a dark blue kepi hat.
Kepi hat.
Yeah, it's like, it kind of looks like a top hat with a bill, but it's folded down. But it was like folded down. Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. They also had Colt revolving rifles, so like the repeating rifles.
Sure.
They had pistols and they had sabers.
Ooh. Did they have bayonets?
That would be a saber.
No.
No?
No, a saber's a sword. Bayonets go on your gun.
Oh, no, they had a saber then.
She's like, fucking A, Brad. Why do you have to ask me questions I don't know?
So, guess what his horse's name was?
George.
You're not wrong. Well, you're not like far off.
I say I'm.
It's not far off. It's a name like that.
Is it really?
Yeah, Billy Boy.
Oh.
Billy. His name is Billy.
Billy Boy?
Mm-hmm. He called him Billy Boy.
All right.
So cavalry horses were typically brown or black and 15 to 16 hands in height.
Okay, sure.
And each horse was valued at about $150, which was about $4,600 in today's money.
I mean,
that seems fairly inexpensive for a horse.
it is.
But,
I mean, I used to have a horse.
Yeah, that's right. Molly.
Yeah, she was a sweet horse. She wasn't very tall. I
thought you were going to say sweetheart.
I mean, she was.
Sweetheart, sweet horse. Anyway.
All right. I don't remember how tall she was. Do you know why they do it in hands?
It's like 4 fingers or something.
Yeah.
But no, I don't remember why it's in hands.
Because people didn't have tape measures back in the day. So they would just do that. And that's how many hands they were.
Yeah.
And for some reason that just stuck.
Yeah.
Whatever. But
so I'm going to give you kind of a brief timeline of James's regiment and what he did in the Civil War up until a moment that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So he was a part of the Second Michigan Regiment.
Yeah.
They participated in the Peninsula Campaign of 1862, including the battles of Williamsburg, Virginia, which Union won, Seven Pines, which is also in Richmond, Virginia, and that's one that the Confederates won.
Okay.
And Malvern Hill near Richmond, Virginia,
Malvern Hill,
and the Union won on that one.
I never heard of that one.
And then they fought in Second Bull Run, and that is near Prince William County, Virginia. The Confederates won in August of 1862. In 1862, they were involved in the battles of Antietam, which is in Maryland.
Okay.
And the Union won that one. And Fredericksburg, Virginia, which the Confederates won.
So are you saying he was a part of all of these?
His regiment was.
Right. Okay.
Which is multiple companies.
Correct. Okay.
So he was a part of some of these, but not all of them.
I see. Okay.
Because of like what happens to him.
Right.
And then the Second Michigan Regiment also went on to see action in the Battle of Chancellorsville in 1863, which is in Virginia, and the Confederates won. And they played a role in the Union victory at Gettysburg in 1863.
Okay.
And then towards the end of the war, the regiment continued to serve in the Army of the Potomac during the Overland Campaign. Which is the regiment participated in General Ulysses S. Grant Overland Campaign, which was a series of battles fought in Virginia.
Gotcha.
And then the Siege of Petersburg. So after the Overland Campaign, the regiment took part in the Siege of Petersburg, Virginia, which was a 9-month siege of the Confederate capital.
I bet that was not fun.
Yeah.
9 months, damn.
So James ended up camping in Tennessee after different skirmishes. Skirmishes? Skirmishes.
Not skirmishes.
Skirmishes.
I think skirmishes should be the name of
Skirmishes.
the episode.
Skirmishes.
There it is.
Okay. So on January 27th, 1864, James on top of his horse, Billy Boy, traveling at full speed in a cavalry charge, got thrown from his horse.
Billy Boy, what were you doing?
So speculation is that James dislocated or broke his shoulder, cracked a few ribs, and potentially his sternum.
So I've never been thrown from a horse like that, but I do believe I've told you this, so I'll just repeat it real quick. I got stepped on by a horse.
Ouch.
That fucking hurt. So I was riding. He was a super nice horse too, and obviously he didn't mean to do it, but I was riding him. His name was Dan. Yeah, I was on Dan. She was on Nick. Yeah, Dan. And this lady, so the property I lived on was an old farm, had some field. was all fenced in. That's where the horses went. And this lady who lived next door, did the whole flip the bag, like a plastic bag in the air.
Like to open it up.
Yeah, correct. And, well.
Spooked Dan.
So he abruptly turned with me on him, shook me off of him, basically. So I just fell on the ground. And then he stepped down to go run, and it stepped right on the back of my calf.
Not even on your foot.
No, it was on the back of my calf.
Ouch.
That fucking hurt. I was hurting for a few days after that.
I'm sure you did.
I'm just glad he didn't break my bone.
No kidding.
I mean, he very well could have with the force that he went down and pushed off and ran. But I will tell you this, that hurt. And anyone who's been bucked off a horse or whatever, it's not fun. So I feel for
James
getting, thrown from Billy Boy. So
yeah, and James ended up laying unconscious.
I'm not surprised at that.
And at this point, he got captured.
Oh, boo.
So his clothes and his boots were immediately taken from him.
Not
put
surprised.
onto the army or onto the enemy immediately.
Oh yeah,
he just started wearing. They just started wearing his clothes.
Yeah, because they needed it probably.
So he was nearly naked
Oh, boy.
in winter climate.
Oh boy.
So from the very beginning of the war, POWs were exchanged.
Right. Yeah.
Union soldiers held by Confederates were exchanged for Confederate soldiers held by Union soldiers.
Correct.
As soon as slaves were emancipated and joined the Union Army, the exchanges stopped.
I'm not surprised because they didn't have any more weight to them, really, for the South.
Well, they didn't. Well, there was no side, honestly wanted them in their ranks.
Sure.
Essentially. And they were considered, below them.
That's terrible.
They received $10 a month to the whites, $13 a month.
I like how you call it the whites.
The whites. Between January 28th and February 26th, 1864, James was taken to Belle Isle, Virginia.
Okay.
Belle Isle is a small island located in the James River, and it is just south of Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And during the Civil War, it served as a Confederate POW camp.
Gotcha.
So the Belle Isle prison was established in 1862 to hold Union soldiers captured in the area.
Okay.
Conditions in the camp were harsh, leading to rates of disease and death among the prisoners.
Sure.
The island was prone to flooding as well.
Oh, good Lord.
And they often lacked adequate food and water and shelter, medical care.
I would imagine they didn't really focus on giving prisoners top-notch facilities and care.
And it became overcrowded so fast that they knew that a move had to happen.
Sure.
So the public was also afraid of prisoner uprising.
Well, yeah, because they don't want...
And their food is also dwindling.
Well, right.
The townspeople.
They're in a war.
Yeah. So with James in the prison was his best friend, Elijah Steele.
Okay.
And we'll call him Eli. He's 19.
Okay.
David Hill's 21. And John Johnson is 21.
Okay.
And the four of them grew up in the same one-room schoolhouse.
Oh, right.
So very close.
Yeah.
So being thrown from his horse, he was injured. He contracted lice.
Oh, dear.
And obviously extremely hungry.
Right.
So thus Andersonville Prison was erected.
Okay, so they built Andersonville out of a necessity to have more... Space for prisoners. Okay.
Yes, because they were no longer being exchanged.
Right. Yeah, they were just holding them now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So between February 26th and March 4th, they all boarded a train car, a boxcar.
Sure. To get shipped out?
Yeah, to Andersonville. And this is in Georgia.
Right.
So if we drove it by car today, it would be about 627 miles between Belle Isle and Andersonville.
So decent amount of space between.
In 1864, by train, it was 889 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a addition to miles.
Yeah. So it literally took from February 26th to March 4th.
Just to get there.
To get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only, 6 days, but still, that's a long time on a train when you're probably not very well taken care of. And
they have to march to the trains, the train station.
Yeah. Because it's not like it just picked them up from there because they were on an island.
Exactly.
So.
And then they had to walk. I don't know if it was in Americus, Georgia, or if it was in Andersonville, the town, Georgia.
Okay.
To get to the actual prison, they had to walk from the train station to the prison.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. So they all boarded the boxcars. There was just enough room for James to sit in the corner and tend to his wounds. Mm-hmm. But the longer the train ride, the more stops they had to make.
Sure.
The more POWs boarded the train.
Right.
The less and less room they had.
Yeah, that's gotta suck.
Yeah.
They're like sardines in there.
Exactly. Yeah. So Andersonville, the town, only had a population of 20.
What? 20 people? Mm-hmm. Wow, okay.
And it was much more remote, so it's in the southwestern part of Georgia.
Right.
And it was far enough from the war that enemy raids would be less likely and they could be more easily supplied with food.
Okay.
So the stockade was built and meant for 10,000 soldiers.
So, and this was always meant to be a prison, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they built it for relief, prison relief.
Okay.
So it was meant for 10,000 soldiers.
And how many did they have?
Oh, you will find out. I read a book called Now I Know.
Okay.
The story of James Ross Skaden, Andersonville Civil War prisoner. And it is by Yvonne Lynn Scott Bartell.
Okay.
And in it says, quote, "The design of the prison was simple. Tall, straight pines were cut down, trimmed, and topped to make logs about 20 feet in length.
Okay.
Workers with broad axes then hewed the logs into a thickness of 8 to 12 inches. And the hewn timbers pointed on the top were planted about 5 feet deep in a trench, making a wall approximately 15 feet high.
Right.
The original stockade enclosed only about 16.5 acres," end quote.
Right. And then they expanded at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 16.5 acres, if you would imagine a football field, it would be like 4 1/3
Okay.
football fields long and about 2.5 football fields wide.
So really not that wide.
It's really not.
No.
So it's also important to note that there is actually a small stream dividing the camp in two halves.
Oh, okay.
So an east and a west.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So there are no standing trees in the camp.
Because they cut them all down
They cut them all down.
to build the place
And there are, in fact, like little hills and then valleys.
within the camp,
Yes.
basically?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because, yeah, it wasn't like flat ground. They built
Exactly.
it on, so, yeah.
Right. And there's no barracks. They didn't build any barracks for shelter. And rations were issued each day when they, quote, were available.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That had to suck because I'm sure they weren't always readily available.
No.
So is this just literally a place with 4 walls?
Yes.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes.
That would really suck.
Yes.
Especially when it rained, in the mud and shit.
And they're in fucking Georgia.
Where it's hot.
It's hot.
No relief from the sun when it's out.
No.
Oh, man.
And you will come to find out it rained a lot that year.
Did it really?
It did.
Oh, dear.
So the guards, when they built the stockade, they actually left behind sticks and branches, and they allowed the prisoners to take whatever was left.
Okay.
So it was kind of a first come, first served basis, but they could use them to build a shelter of some kind. They called them shebangs.
Shebangs?
The shelters.
Okay. Interesting.
So James and his 3 friends constructed a lean-to using a stockade wall and then the branches. And then Eli actually had a blanket that they used as their roof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So at least they had something, I guess.
Yeah. I'll mention more about the blanket here coming up.
Sure.
Because it's actually unique.
Okay.
So they had roll calls daily, which could honestly take up to 4 or 5 hours.
Ugh.
And they're already really weak from being at Belle Isle and not having food rations there.
Right.
And then standing in line for 4 to 5 hours just to get your name called.
That's brutal.
If there was someone, it took so long because if there was someone missing from the line, they literally stopped roll call.
And they would search for that person?
They would search for that person.
Jesus Christ.
And so if there was like a friend that knew, well, this person's not going to be here when his name comes up, I have to yell missing, sick, or dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So outside of the stockade on a hill, there's the guards camp.
Okay.
And remember that stream I mentioned?
Yep.
They use that stream
For the bathroom?
to drink from.
Oh, okay, good.
But then downstream, they'd use it as their bathing water.
Yeah.
And then further downstream from that, their latrine.
Yep. So I was right.
Once in the stockade, that downstream water is now the prisoners' upstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
So they just had basically shit water available to them.
Immediately.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
To make matters worse,
Oh, dear.
the end of the stockade where the creek would continue on, they built that wall up which clogged the stream.
Oh,
So it was no longer flowing.
gross. Yeah. So it basically just stopped there.
Yeah.
Would it pool up at all? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
come on.
And then to make it even worse, because why not, the cookhouse, which was for the guards mainly,
Yeah.
was built on the creek, and they would use that to dump their grease in
Sure.
all day long.
They would just literally use it to suit them, and then they didn't care about the prisoners, obviously.
Nope.
So,
Nope.
I mean, they didn't even give them places to stay. They said, here's 4 walls, you stay in there.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So daily, 400 prisoners at a time would arrive. Some of them twice a day.
Wow.
So 800 a day at times.
And they always would ship them in by train and have them march there, kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Less and less space for each person.
Right.
The creek was getting more and more polluted, and the smell of the grease and the human waste that was coming up from the stream would make these like brand new POWs like
Throw up?
dry heave, throw up, and one even fainted.
Oh,
like it was witnessed
yeah,
that some even fainted.
That had to just have quite the stench. I mean, that's disgusting. Oh, Lord.
So in March of 1864, 600 soldiers would continue to arrive,
Okay.
many without shoes or stockings.
Right.
They could be seen with their feet wrapped in rags and string,
Whatever they could find, basically.
and lice was taking over at this point.
Yeah, they had to be running rampant
Yeah.
in a place like that.
Everyone had oily, sticky, dirty hair, dirty skin.
Well, you have nowhere to clean yourself, because even if
No.
you go in the river to clean yourself, you're cleaning yourself in shit.
Yes.
And that's probably a breeding ground for lice.
And lice like would burrow into their clothes and rags and shoes and
Gross.
but some of the men would actually pluck them from their clothing and stuff and put them into what fire they could
To try and get rid
create.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they use that as like part of their pastime to hear them like pop in the in the fire.
I mean, what else do you have to do?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in prison, so.
Yeah. There are a couple things coming up that they did do, and I will get to that.
Okay.
So from that same book, quote, "The stench of the camp is overpowering. Some of the new arrivals faint as soon as they come through the gate, while others vomit as they take their first breath of this putrid, fly-infested air." End quote.
Gross. That's terrible.
So remember, the camp was meant for like 10,000 POWs.
Yep.
Well, by May of 1864, there were 12,000 at this point.
Holy shit. Already 2,000 over, and I'm sure it didn't stop there.
It really didn't.
Oh, dear.
So now we're going to talk about Captain Henry Wurz.
This is the guy who ran the camp, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. He's actually from Switzerland, but I think moved to like Louisiana and got in on the Confederacy.
Okay.
So the son of a bitch declared that the prisoners, including James and his 3 friends, could no longer use stockade walls as part of their shelter.
Good Lord.
Yeah. They also took down one of the walls and expanded the camp.
How much did they expand, did it say?
10 acres.
Oh, so it was
26.
26 and a quarter or whatever it was? Okay. So what was the if the original was it 16.25? Is that what it originally was designed for 10,000? What did that extra 10 acres in theory add prisoner wise?
I don't think they really put a number on it.
Okay.
But if I had to guess, it would be half that then.
Well,
so around 15,000, I guess.
Yeah, 15 to 16 even, because 10 is a little over the obviously the halfway. So I could see like 16,000. Yeah, maybe. Okay.
So Wirtz also developed a kill line.
A kill line.
A small fence was used to mark a line that prisoners could not cross without risking
being shot or something. Okay.
So on the other side of the line were the guards.
Gotcha.
So in between the kill line and the stockade walls was about 20 feet. And that, of course, made that prison much smaller.
Well, yeah, you're taking away space now.
Yep. They refer to that line as the deadline.
Oh, there you go.
And that's kind of where we get the name Deadline.
Is it?
It's not like quoted as in it's the Andersonville Prison, but that's just part of like the overall history of the word deadline is it comes from prisons.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So this Wirtz character, he didn't run it right away. He came in at some point.
He did.
Right?
There was another. Yeah, there was he came in later. So there was another commander that actually was a decent human being.
Sure.
And he tried to get food rations and clothing and shoes for all these prisoners, and he just wasn't doing a splendid job, apparently, and they brought in Wirtz instead.
Well, I mean, they probably didn't think he was doing a splendid job because he was trying for the prisoners.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, we're not wasting our rations, our equipment, anything on these people. They're literally just our prisoner.
So with roll calls happening daily, these fragile men are like being held up by other fragile men. Like they're trying to hold each other up, right?
Okay.
Now there's a large group of New Yorkers that were in this camp called them the Raiders.
Okay.
They would rob essentially every prisoner they could find with something of value.
Oh dear.
So, they started out like concealing their actions, but eventually like the Raiders no longer cared. And any resistance to the Raiders, they would beat you senseless.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So they were just basically a gang within the prison.
Yes.
Was what it was. Okay.
Mid-May 1864, James developed signs of scurvy.
Oh.
Do you know what scurvy is?
I vaguely tell me though.
It's a condition that results from a vitamin C deficiency.
That's right. Okay.
So like he's not getting fruits and vegetables. And,
right. Yeah.
So scurvy symptoms are anemia, exhaustion, spontaneous bleeding, limb pain, swelling, and ulcerations of the gums and loss of teeth.
Hey.
Yeah. So his best friend Eli from his company was getting worse and worse with each passing day. His sickness started before they even reached Andersonville, but as rations continued to be low, he ended up dry heaving and getting diarrhea, dysentery, and scurvy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's quite the cocktail of shit.
Yeah. James actually made it a point in his diary entries to mention pretty much daily how Eli was.
Okay, so he's just keeping track.
It's his best friend.
Well,
so,
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So Eli was only 20. He looked like an old man because of how thin and malnutrition he was.
Right.
And he ended up dying
on
May 24th, 1864.
That's sad.
Laying next to James.
That's crazy.
Yeah, James kept him company.
Well, at least he had his friend there, but what shitty conditions to die in, man.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So at the end of May, rain would continue on for days and days at a time. And remember, I said there was kind of like hills and valleys.
Oh, yeah.
There's a valley in the stockade that would become like swampy, waste, filth.
Right.
Riddled with mud and vermin and flies and just nastiness. So, like people were literally walking in this. Some of them were sleeping in this. Like there's no room.
No, not with that many people.
So remember Eli's blanket that I mentioned?
Yep.
So it's actually a
roof.
Yeah, so it's actually a rubber blanket. So
Okay.
they called it a rubber blanket in the book, but I looked it up and it's called a gum blanket.
Okay.
And it was cloth, like canvas cloth on one side and then rubber on the other side to protect against the elements.
Sure,
and
makes
you could
sense.
sleep on it on the ground and use it as a roof, etc.
Okay.
So the raiders saw this hot commodity
Well, yeah, they wanted that.
and went after it hard.
Sure.
So between James, David, and John, they fought 2 raiders. They rolled around in the mud. They took swings at each other. James was knocked over with a blow to the face. Actually, they kind of like hit him in the ear, which will knock you senseless anyway.
Yep.
And made him whirl around and lose his balance.
Okay.
And James yelled, quote, so the 2 raiders were essentially taking this blanket off of David and John. And James yelled, quote, the blanket belonged to a man who died of smallpox. We got the pox from the things ourselves.
So he's just trying to make shit up so they get away.
And they dropped it. They dropped it and ran away.
Wow.
So he claimed that they had smallpox and the blanket had smallpox. And
So if you take my blanket, you're going to get
you're
smallpox.
going to get smallpox.
Wow.
Isn't that brilliant?
I mean, yeah, especially then because they didn't fucking know.
Nope.
So, I mean, to keep their stuff from getting stolen, that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Good on him for thinking that fast about that.
So they managed to keep the blanket.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So end of May, 17,000 are in the stockade now.
Oh, my word.
They have like a makeshift hospital. There's 1,000 in there.
Good God.
And by this point, 1,500 have died.
Wow, already 1,500. And
Yes.
this prison's been open for 3 months?
He got there in March.
Yeah, 2 months, or 2.5 maybe, whatever it
Yeah.
was. He got there at March 4th,
Yeah.
but
This is end of May. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, Jesus.
So with the conditions, there's a wet blanket of just fecal matter covering the inside of the stockade. There's oozing filth. There's worms in the slime. And above that, flies are hovering above the fecal
bet,
matter.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be running rampant as well.
Yeah. So to help pass the time, the POWs created jobs.
Okay.
Some of them would clean clothes as a laundromat with ashes and sand.
Well, you use what you got, I guess.
They have no soap.
Nope.
A barber had a rusty pair of scissors, and so he would go around and cut hair down as short as possible with these scissors to help get rid of lice.
Right.
Some sewed patches and stuff like that.
How'd they get a needle or anything and thread?
It's probably not like that. It's probably like use what you have around you to try to make some kind of a needle.
Sure.
But it's probably not an actual sewing needle.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
Some would try to repair shoes for what shoes were there.
Okay.
And some would even fortune telled.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Do they have a tarot deck?
Oh, they named Bob Vanga.
Did she call that one? No, that was before her time.
In June, more rain.
Oh, jeez.
Rain upon rain upon rain. And then when it would stop, it would be hot and ungodly humid.
Ungodly human.
Humid.
Humid, yes.
Ungodly human.
There it is. Maybe that's the title of the episode. Ungodly human.
Now, if you remember, like, images that you might have seen from, like, the Holocaust days, you would see, like, these really skinny people. It's just bones with skin on top.
Yeah,
but they would have, like, these big bellies.
Yeah.
So that's known as dropsy.
Okay.
And they also experience that at Andersonville. So it's edema or swelling underneath the skin due to accumulation of fluid.
Okay.
So you would see that as well. People had mouths that were just oozing blood from
Lord.
scurvy. And then there were even murders by the raiders. They would kill to get their commodities.
I mean, they're in a prison at this point. They don't care.
Yeah.
Which is just funny if you think about it, because this is obviously a Confederate prison.
Yes.
All the people that are prisoners are from the same side, and these guys are killing their same fucking people. It's like, I get what they're doing because they're trying to survive.
It's a Confederate prison, but they're all Union men.
That's what I just said.
Oh.
Yeah. They're all on the same side. The people that are prisoners in there. And they're
inside.
killing each
Yes,
other.
yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
It's all right.
I thought you meant the guards. I was like, no, that's not right.
No, it's
You're
just
right.
like they're killing their own people. But
exactly.
in a situation like that, it shows you survival of the fittest kind of mentality, because it doesn't matter that, hey, we're all on the same team here.
Right.
But, everyone for themselves at that point.
It is, yeah.
Which is sad.
Yeah. So to pass the time, other than picking off lice,
Ugh.
they would play cards.
They had cards. Did they make their own?
It didn't say that in the book, but
Okay.
I would imagine they kind of have something stowed away somewhere.
Yeah, possibly.
They would play checkers with stones.
Sure.
They would write letters that would never get mailed.
That had to be hard.
They would wander.
Right.
And they would sleep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What else do you have to do, though?
Sometimes they would talk about, like, my mom used to make this dish at home, and they would talk about food, and
Make
I think
themselves
that,
go insane.
yeah, I think that would be worse.
Well, yeah, because then it's like, now I really want this dish.
So now we're at 22,000 men.
Good Lord. That shot up another $5,000 pretty quick.
And that's with the 26 acres.
Oh, my word. Is that the only expansion they ever did? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's capped out there.
Yeah.
Wow. 22,000 prisoners, excuse
Yeah.
me. Well, maybe soldiers.
So soldiers, the POWs, finally went to worse and started complaining about the raiders.
Sure.
They're like, have you not noticed what's been happening in here? They're taking over the stockade.
Right.
And the raiders had knives, they had brass knuckles, they had clubs, and their prisoners were just at their mercy.
Yeah, they
Not everyone can claim smallpox, So Wirtz actually did something interesting.
Okay.
He demanded that all the raiders be presented to him.
Oh, wow.
Hundreds showed up. Like, they, quote unquote, captured and put them in front of Wirtz and said, here,
Yeah.
there's hundreds of them.
Sure.
Wirtz collected 20 POWs, not out of this raider pack.
Right.
And he told the 20 prisoners to pick out the most notorious of the raiders.
Okay.
6 were chosen.
Oh, wow.
And Wirtz ordered them to create a judge and jury and have attorneys and put on a trial
Wow.
for each of those 6.
Really? Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Some of them are already attorneys.
Right.
I mean, they had jobs before the Civil War.
Of course.
So they actually had their own trial. And
That's surprising. A person running a prison like that would do that.
yeah.
Okay.
Gave them a little bit of humanity back in that.
Yeah. So it's like, out of all the crap that they didn't do for them, why would you do this?
Yeah.
Because that was probably the easiest thing you could give them without giving supplies, giving clothes and all that stuff and food and whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
And then they also don't have to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, no, he put it in their hands. And
Yeah.
was like, yeah, you go you do this thing.
So, shocker, they were all sentenced by hanging.
Weird. Imagine that. I would have never guessed that happened.
And they actually did end up hanging all 6 of them.
They did, okay.
The one that was most notorious, his name was Mosby.
Mosby.
Yeah. His rope broke.
Oh.
And survived, and they're like, we're going to do this again. And they literally did it immediately. They're like, nah, you're not getting away with this.
Yeah, no, you don't, just because your rope broke doesn't mean you're scot-free now.
Yep.
Fuck that. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That would have broke.
The other raiders would be marched through the camp where POWs were allowed to throw sticks and stones at them and humiliate them, essentially.
Did they break their bones?
I mean, if someone got in a good lucky shot, it could be. Yeah. So July 1864.
Did it rain more?
Population 35,000.
Holy fuck. They added 13,000 more in a month?
Yeah. That's how many prisoners are coming daily.
That's insane.
Each POW occupied the space of a grave.
Well, yeah.
At this point, James was suffering from chronic diarrhea and he could barely walk.
Oh, dear.
But to keep their spirits high, they counted their blessings.
Oh.
Can you imagine what a blessing would be? Knowing what they're dealing with right now.
That they weren't dead?
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
they don't really have anything else that's blessing them at the moment.
Well, I'm going to tell you what they're thankful for.
Okay, let's go.
And I'm going to use this in my point of view, like a first person point of view.
Okay.
I'm thankful to God I don't have a mirror.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to see how I look at that point, because you'd be like a shadow of yourself, really. Mm-hmm. Oh, good Lord.
I'm thankful I only had the runs twice today.
Oh, man. Oh, that's terrible to be thankful for, but I understand it.
I'm thankful I don't have to worry about getting the floor dirty.
Well, no, you don't have to clean it up. It's already dirty. It's full of shit.
I'm thankful no one has asked me to comb my hair. And the last one, I'm thankful for all this leisure time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's maybe a stretch, but okay.
Yeah.
That is, well, I mean, again, they didn't have much to be thankful for, so.
Come August,
Crazy.
approximately 150 soldiers would die every 24 hours.
Wow. So every day.
So James was all thinking, well, Belle Isle was better than we thought it was.
Yeah, no kidding.
They had at least fresh air.
Right.
Because with these prison walls, they were so high, there would literally be no air movement.
Yeah, blocking the wind, basically.
And then dead bodies burning in the Georgia sun.
So did they mention at all what they did with them? Did they?
They had a death wagon.
Okay.
A la bring out your dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally had that.
And they would they take them and bury them in like a mass grave, or would they burn them? Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And I will touch on that a little bit more as well.
Gotcha.
So new POWs in August here would march into the camp and immediately gag and vomit and fainted. And one man who fainted ended up going mad in the prison. So these new POWs were actually sent to liberate Andersonville, but were captured instead. So the prisoners in Andersonville were like, thank God someone knows we're here. They're still trying to get us out of here, even though these sorry folk.
Sorry, we got caught.
Exactly.
Trying to help you.
Exactly. So even though they were captured, the other POWs had their spirits raised just a touch. Like, okay, there's a little bit of hope.
Well, I mean, even though it might have been minute, it's something, like they said, knowing that there's people out there that knowing that we're here and that they're trying to do something. They just fucking failed at it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, no, I mean, that had to raise your spirits a tinge. But wow. So on August 16th, 1864, there was a torrential thunderstorm. Oh, dear.
And a bolt of lightning struck the ground, and it opened up a water spring. Really? Fresh water.
Oh, wow.
They called it Providence Spring.
Well, makes sense. Is it still in operation today?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So Providence Spring was actually in the deadline. Okay. But the guards allowed the men to cross over that part of the deadline to get to the fresh water.
Wow. That had to be some type of relief for them. Yeah. To actually have water that's not.
But it would also be scary because you're crossing the deadline. There was mention in the book that someone accidentally slipped on the mud and hit his head on the deadline post, and he was shot because he touched the deadline.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Wow, poor guy. Just want some water.
Yeah. Meanwhile, James's gums are tender, bleeding, teeth are loose. He's got constant diarrhea. All of his muscle mass is gone, and he has no strength left in his limbs.
I can imagine. How did he keep writing?
I'm sure there's enough muscle to move your fingers.
Well, maybe. Just, I mean, the will to still want to do it, though, is... Yeah. I mean, that's more impressive to me than the muscle being able to do it, really.
Yeah. I will tell you that as we progress in the book, the diaries get a little bit shorter each time.
I'm not surprised.
But there's still quite a bit of information he's given us.
Sure.
So at one point, Captain Wirth pressured prisoners into taking an oath of allegiance to the Confederate Army. And if they were to sign up to join their army, they would be liberated immediately.
Did a lot of them do that?
A few did, yes.
I mean, I at that point, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because anything, even fighting for the other side's got to be better than what they're doing.
They would get clothing, they would get paid, and they would get food. So, yes, a few did sign up.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Did they have a number or no?
I think I say so a little bit later.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
September 1864. The lack of fruits and vegetables has completely taken its toll. James now has swollen ankles and feet and can no longer support his weight when walking.
Wow.
And there was news of Atlanta being taken over by the Union.
Okay.
So, for fear of the Union seeing Andersonville, Wirz moved a large number of prisoners to another prison south.
Okay.
Under the guise of them being exchanged, even though that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, because they stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that had to help moving some of them out of there, though, right?
Yes. And then they actually did continue this. So, Wirz demanded that only those who can walk can be taken out and sent to Savannah or Charleston.
Okay.
Better prisons, I would imagine.
You would hope.
Days would pass after this announcement, but finally, he asked for 10 detachments. Each detachment has 270 men.
Okay.
So about 2,700 men who can walk were taken out of the prison.
I mean, again, there's still a boatload left, but...
Yep. And they were piled into boxcars.
Oh, jeez. Sardines again.
James's detachment, because it was kind of like regulated in a way.
Sure.
His detachment was told that he would be leaving in 3 days.
And how many days did it take?
Not 3 days. His friends, David and John, in solidarity, told James, if you can't walk out of here, we're not going either.
Wow.
No man left behind.
Sure.
So September 10th, 1864 was their turn.
Okay.
David and John helped James to his feet. They were standing on either side of him. His feet were swollen, and he had to use his tippy toes to walk.
Yeah.
And his knees were unable to straighten.
Yeah.
Close to the exit, James fainted.
Oh no.
And he was slapped across the face by John to wake him up. Dude. Wake up. We're almost there. We're almost there.
We're almost out.
But the guards saw them.
Oh, poop.
Immediately declared James cannot leave because he cannot walk himself.
Sure.
The next thing that James could remember was, quote, a dull thud on my head, falling, dragging, sensation, end quote.
Okay.
Nothing else was mentioned. So not sure if he was knocked unconscious by a guard, by who knows, if he just fell, we don't know.
Okay.
So all three of them remained in Andersonville. Just like David and John said, no man left behind.
I mean, that's very nice because obviously it's their friend and, they've known him, almost their lives. So that's awesome that he had those people there with him. But man, it sucks that if I was James, I'd be like, no, you guys go and save yourself.
Yeah. So James says, quote, I wept bitter tears. In addition to being terribly sick, I now suffered overpowering guilt and heartache.
Well, right. I mean, can you blame the guy? Because again, these two guys stayed behind
for him alone.
And I'd feel guilty as shit too.
So by the end of September, because of all these trains coming in to move these prisoners out, 8,200 remained in the prison.
That's significantly lower than that other number. Mm-hmm. Wow. And
James found himself in the Stockade prison. This was on the grounds, but it was a little bit further out from the expansion.
Gotcha.
3 out of 4 prisoners that went to the hospital would die.
Oh, jeez.
And James avoided the hospital as long as he could.
Well, yeah, because you have a 75% chance of death.
Yes. So one of the biggest sufferers in the hospital was gangrene.
Okay, sure.
So sores would spread visibly by the hour. Yep. Ulcerations ate out the tissue between the skin and the ribs. Ugh. In the mornings, blue vitriol was used on the wounds.
What's blue vitriol?
It is copper sulfate pentahydrate. Okay. And it is a very painful antiseptic.
Oh, so it was meant to help, but it was
super painful.
Super painful to take. Okay. That sucks.
They would hear screams every morning because of this antiseptic.
Taking that, and it's, again, supposed to make you feel better, but...
The doctors that were there performed 2 hours of limb amputation each morning to help with gangrene control.
Wow.
And James in the book specifically mentions the pile of severed limbs that he witnessed.
Yeah, I mean, pile arms here, pile legs there. That's just wild.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So all of October and November he spent in the hospital. And there was only one entry for each month.
Oh, really? Probably because he just couldn't do it.
Yeah. In October, he talked about hallucinating meals from his mother and his sisters.
Oh, yeah, there's that again.
And in November, he said that President Lincoln was reelected for a second term.
Oh, there you go.
December 7th, 1864. Do not mention Pearl Harbor.
I was not saying a word.
You looked at me funny. Go back to Juneau about the Juneau people if you want to know. Episode 1. December 7th, 1864, James turned 21.
Okay.
He's only 21.
I know.
Oh my gosh,
going through
just
all
a
of
little
that.
baby.
And he's going through all of that and he's just turned 21. That's crazy.
Yeah. On December 23rd, Private Jonah Wheeler of the 111th U.S. Colored Infantry arrived at the prison.
Okay.
His job was to find deceased patients, load them onto the death wagon, and bury the dead.
Okay.
And this is how James met Jonah. Somehow, James was loaded onto that death wagon because that's how sick he was.
Yeah.
Jonah saw him and saved him from the cart of the deceased and carried his little frail body back to the hospital. He stopped the guy who was carrying the wagon. Dude, stop. This guy is still alive.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I'm not dead yet.
I was just gonna say
we
that.
have to. It has to happen.
Oh, poor guy.
I know it's terrible.
To be
but
that freaking, like, frail looking. And
yeah. At death's door.
Close to death. And yeah, wow.
So Jonah officially saved James from dying. He provided him with a blanket, clothing, all lice ridden, of course, but even extra food rations at the hospital he provided James. And he held him at night to keep him from shivering.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. January, with James still alive, so this is 1865 now.
Right.
Less prisoners at the camp. They were finally noticing improved rations.
Oh, that's nice at least.
Jonah, who used to work with lame horses on a plantation near Memphis, moved James's joints and made him exercise his limbs by pushing against his strengths. That's one of the techniques that I do in massage.
That for sure.
Yeah. So eventually, James did begin to stand on his toes still, but he could finally stand again.
That's better than not standing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's crazy.
February 1865, Worse again offered loyalty to the Unions to join the Confederate Army.
Right.
21 joined.
Only 21 people? Mm-hmm. Wow. That shows you the kind of dedication they had to their side, though.
I think that shows what they would do to survive.
Those 21 people, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
In March, reunited with John and David finally.
Oh,
because he was in the hospital.
Yeah.
James was well enough to stand, so he was well enough not to be in the hospital anymore. And they spent about 6 months apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know, or did you see anything that said that like they knew he was still alive at least, because they didn't get to see him, right?
I think they knew.
Okay.
But it took a little bit to find them in this. Yeah.
Sure.
To find him in the stockade, but they did spend 6 months apart and they were reunited. So Captain Worse enters the camp, and out of a population of 5,750, 900 of the sickest would be exchanged.
Okay.
So during roll call the day of the exchange, James, David, and John were all selected as the sickest in their group.
Oh, wow.
Sadly, because Jonah was black, he would not be exchanged.
Oh, that's too bad.
Therefore, he remained in the camp.
Right.
400 sickened stockade prisoners lined up after 500 of the hospital prisoners were loaded onto the trains.
Sure.
So while waiting in line, Jonah walked up to James and kept their little group company.
Okay.
James felt heartsick, knowing that he'd probably never see Jonah again.
Right.
And as the gate opened to their freedom, James stepped back and said to David and John, quote, "Friends, I wish you well, and I'll see you back home," end quote.
So he decided to stay with Jonah.
Yeah. With shock on their faces, they hurried outside the stockade. They were hurried.
Yeah,
like they were like pushed out.
Right.
And they saw James disappear on the inside.
That's crazy. I mean, this dude really kind of brought him back from death's door. So I don't blame him for wanting to stay, but man, to give up that freedom, because these people, you said they were being exchanged, correct?
Yeah.
So they were going to be free.
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty ballsy.
So at this point, trains were in need of repair, tracks were in need of repair, and it was days before another train would arrive.
Right.
By the end of March, only 3,319 POWs were left in Andersonville.
3,319. Wow.
Now comes April. And this is where I started. I was already infuriated with the situation, but I got even more infuriated.
Okay, let's learn.
April 4th, POWs were giving 4-day rations and were climbed into rail cars. His day finally came. Okay. And Jonah was in the last cattle car.
Okay.
Because all the blacks had to go at the back.
Sure.
They were finally leaving Andersonville Prison. They traveled 50 miles, which was 5 hours long.
Oh, God.
Because that's how bad the trains were.
Sure.
They traveled 50 miles to Albany, Georgia.
Okay.
They got out and camped.
Okay.
Okay. This is going to be like a rapid fire. April 5th, on foot, they marched 17 miles.
Okay.
Made camp that night. April 6th, marched 20 miles. Oh. Camped that night.
Okay.
We're talking with people with no shoes.
Yeah, right. I mean, 17, 20 miles.
Very weak people with no shoes.
That had to be tearing up their feet.
April 7th, marched 14 miles to Thomasville, where the next day they would board another train to Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. April 8th, they went back to Andersonville.
Why?
Commanders of the two armies could not agree on a location for their exchange.
Oh, come on.
No, where did the other prisoners go then? Could they not have continued that as their exchange place?
Right.
They literally had to retrace their steps. On April 9th, they retraced their steps. April 12th, they were back in Albany. April 13th, they boarded the train to Andersonville.
That's wild. How do you fuck that up that bad?
Isn't that awful?
That's terrible. Because now they have to redo that whole freaking trek.
And worse said, we'll leave again in a few days.
Wow.
Again, rapid fire here.
Yep.
April 17th, they boarded a train, this time to Macon.
Macon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this time there was no room to sit.
I'm not surprised.
Once you're in the cars.
Right.
April 18th, they reached Macon and were ordered back to Albany.
What?
That was 106 miles.
Good Lord.
April 19th, they marched towards Thomasville, which is 60 miles away.
Okay.
April 20th, they marched and camped. April 21st, marched and camped. April 22nd, they finally reached Thomasville and were to leave on the train that evening.
Okay. Where to?
To Florida.
Okay.
April 23rd, they traveled by train. April 24th, they made it to Florida, early in the morning.
Finally.
142 miles.
Oh, dear.
And they camped here for a few days.
Okay.
Now, April 27th, and your wife actually mentioned this when she was talking about Andersonville to us.
Okay.
Unknown to James, the steamboat Sultana, carrying 2,300 passengers, explodes and sinks in the Mississippi River, killing 1,800 men.
That's right. Yeah, she did mention that.
That steamboat had a max capacity of 375 people, and there was 2,300 on there.
Isn't that wild? You couldn't have even moved.
Most of those passengers were from Andersonville.
Of course they were. Wow. So they were finally getting sent on their way home, and they ended up dying.
It is considered the greatest maritime disaster in U.S. history, with a greater loss of life than the Titanic. Yeah,
no kidding, because what was it, 2,300 something, and then 1,800 of them died, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And the headlines and stuff around the Sultana was overlooked
Sure.
because at the same time, John Wilkes Booth killed President Lincoln.
Yeah, of course. So no one really said much about it because,
Yep.
well, our president just got shot.
So April 28th, they took another train to Baldwin, Florida. They hopped trains that then led them to Jacksonville, which was about 21 miles away.
Okay.
Now, here in Jacksonville, they saw the 134th U.S. Colored Infantry.
Okay.
And they all hobbled essentially over to their hospitality. They could just see them with like open arms. And
Yeah.
so they provided the POWs with food, coffee for the first time,
Wow.
shelter, and James specifically mentions kindness.
Well, yeah, because, wow.
May 7th, 1865, Captain Henry Wirtz was captured by the Union.
Yay.
He was still at Andersonville.
Oh, geez.
James stayed in Jacksonville until May 10th. I'm just kind of doing this chronologically here.
Sure.
Food was served on plates,
That had to be wild for them.
forks to eat with, wholesome meals 3 a day, clean water, and they were given soap.
Wow. That had to be nice.
After the first few days of their freedom, Jonah and James were separated because of their segregation laws.
Sure.
James thanked him for saving his life. Jonah and James never saw each other again.
Oh, so they never saw each other anyways after that?
No.
That's sad.
But they did get free together.
Well, I mean, that's something, I guess, but I kind of was hoping that they'd be able to, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
hang out.
On May 10th, James boarded a steamer on the Atlantic waters and headed towards Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay.
He was stationed there at Camp Parole until June 28th.
Camp Parole?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
June 28th is the day that he headed home finally.
Wow.
He took a Baltimore, Ohio train to Detroit.
Okay.
There was no mention really of what happened after that.
Oh, so we chronicled his time there and like his release, if you will, but beyond that, we don't know what happened to James.
Yeah. So Belle Isle Prison was closed in 1865 after the Civil War ended.
Right.
Today, the island is a historical site and a popular destination for visitors.
Okay.
If you were to travel to Andersonville now, you'd see a lush green meadow of grass
Okay.
and like just huge like little valleys and hills, and it's
Sure.
just all really lush and green.
Are the walls not there anymore?
They are not there.
Okay.
So they have stakes that marked out the perimeter of the walls.
Sure.
And they'll say like stockade on the markers.
Right.
And then they also have markers that identified where the deadline was.
Okay.
That 20 feet separation.
Yep.
There is one short wall, the North Gate, that stands, but it is a replica.
Oh, okay.
And this is where the prisoners would enter. So they rebuilt that section.
Yeah, just to kind of show.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Out where the guards stayed, they had cannons facing the stockade. Those are still on the grounds.
Are those actual?
They were like meant to deter. So they had, I think there were 4. 2 were pointed towards the stockade and 2 were pointed outward in hopes of deterring any
Uprising?
Yeah. No, not uprisings, but any Union soldiers coming to liberate the camp.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Also on the grounds inside that deadline is Providence Spring.
And it's still bubbling up water?
Around the year 1900, former prisoners and a group called the Women's Relief Corps raised money to build the monument. So they created like this nice stone building monument where they have a reflection pool with the stream coming up. And
nice.
It looks really, really nice. And you can hear the sound of water. It's really nice.
Cool.
The monument was dedicated then in 1901.
Nice.
So that is still standing.
Okay.
On the grounds of the prison, there's also the cemetery.
Sure.
13,000 POWs are buried there.
It's a lot of POWs in a short time.
29% of the population of the prison.
Wow. I mean...
And that was over the course of only 14 months.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't around for that long.
No. In comparison, some guards did die as well.
I'm sure.
They lost about 10% of their population.
Still significant, but not as bad.
Yeah. So they had 2,500 guards and 250 died.
Sure.
So remember the Raiders?
Yeah.
The 6 who died by hanging?
Yeah.
They can be seen in the cemetery, and they are actually completely separate from the rest of the soldiers.
Oh, really?
It looks like they're more on display
Sure.
because they are so separate and it's super obvious. But they did that because the soldiers deemed them not worthy of laying amongst their own fallen comrades.
Wow. I mean, that's kind of weird that they like took that stance on it with how they treated all these people. But I mean, that's kind of nice that they did it because, yeah, they were worthless fucking people.
Yeah. So after the war, there's a woman named Clara Barton. She was a nurse.
Okay.
She was known as Angel of the Battlefield.
Oh.
And she helped search for loved ones who had vanished during the conflict.
Okay.
So Barton began receiving countless letters with pleas of information on their missing, a family member's missing soldier.
Sure.
So she undertook the arduous task of researching these soldiers' whereabouts and responding to the family inquiries.
Okay.
At the same time, in June of 1865, there's a guy named Dorrance Atwater.
Dorrance Atwater.
A former prisoner at Andersonville.
Okay.
He contacted Barton seeking copies of her list of missing soldiers. And together they labeled every single
Person
headstone.
who was there?
Yes,
Okay.
every single person in the order of death.
Wow.
So they literally have person number 1, so-and-so,
Sure.
from this regiment,
Okay.
all the way up to 13,000.
That's quite impressive. That had to take a while.
But just the fact that they could identify.
Well, yeah.
Guess how many POWs out of 13,000 were unidentified?
1,200.
400.
Wow.
That's it.
That's
It's a large number, but in the vast scheme of things,
No.
400 out of 13,000?
that's a pretty good percentage.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that they got right or got marked, whatever you want to call it. But wow, only 400 couldn't be?
Yes.
I mean, that's impressive.
So James was discharged from the Army on July 26, 1865 in Detroit.
Okay.
He married Permelia Howley in Grand Rapids on October 10th, 1865,
That's
like
a-
super short after.
Yeah, that's a unique name.
Mm-hmm.
Permelia.
They had 4 children.
Oh, there you go.
The author of this book is his great-great-grandchild.
That's pretty cool.
James died at the age of 69 on April 7th, 1913, after 2 years of being bedridden, condition unknown. Wasn't mentioned.
No, yeah.
Captain Henry Worse was sentenced to hang on November 10th, 1865 for war crimes.
Okay.
David Hill and John Johnson died in the Sultana disaster.
Oh, no, really?
They did.
So good thing James didn't go with him.
And he was supposed to be on that boat.
Yeah.
And the beginning of this book, the author said that he did die on the Sultana, and then later found out that he wasn't on that steamboat.
Wow.
He was supposed to be there.
That's crazy. That's sad that those 2 guys died.
And there is zero info that I have found on Jonah.
Okay. I mean, that's not surprising being a man of color in, the 1860s or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not surprising that you couldn't find much on him.
Yeah.
So which is unfortunate because of what he did for James, literally saved his life. Yeah.
So that is the story of James Skaden and the horrendous conditions at the Andersonville prison camp of the Civil War.
Yeah.
This book that I read, it's called Now I Know, the story of James Russ Skaden, Andersonville Civil War prisoner, by Yvonne Linscott Bartell. She collected he had pension records.
Oh, really?
He had diaries. And then she also found a ton of information of other soldiers that corroborated some of the things that James said. So she would enter that.
Nice.
And then there were other things that James didn't say, but she found other people in the same exact time frame that she would add to this story as well.
So she just they also had diaries or something, journals, whatever.
So the first half of the book is mostly about the Civil War and what his regiment would have done.
Okay.
And then the second half of the book is in James's point of view.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yes. There is also a video that I watched on the cemetery portion of what I discussed, and that one's called Andersonville National Cemetery.
Okay.
And I'll have those links in our show notes.
Awesome. That's wild.
Yeah. There's also no known picture of James, but I think it was her mother or her aunt created an image. Like, so I'll put that on social media as well.
Oh, okay.
A
So
drawing.
A painting or a drawing. Okay.
Yeah.
Drawing. I mean, that's not surprising that they wouldn't have had an actual photograph.
But they did have pictures of his 2 sisters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his older sisters. So
Okay.
that's in the book as well as a picture of Captain Henry Worse.
That piece of shit.
Worse is the worst.
He's the worst.
He's the worst.
Well, that was energetic and uplifting.
My throat is scratchy.
And I bet that's a lot to go over. Yeah, that's a lot of fucking people on a small amount of land.
Yeah.
I mean, 26 acres is a decent amount of land, but when you have, what was the top number? 30 to 33?
It was, I think it was 33, 35,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
And then you're just nowhere to go to the bathroom, nowhere to seek shelter. I mean, Jesus.
Can you imagine having diarrhea
No.
several times a day?
Yeah, like one of the things they were thankful for is only having diarrhea twice today.
Yeah.
Ugh. I mean, no, I wouldn't want to even.
I panic if I only got like 2 plies of toilet paper left and I didn't plan ahead.
Yeah, they just had nothing.
Was that a little TMI?
I mean, it was kind of weird. But I appreciate the information, I guess.
You're very welcome.
No, that was, yeah, that's depressing. Can we do an uplifting story one of these days? Wow. Yeah, let's find an uplifting story.
All right, I will take that challenge.
I challenge you to make me not depressed after an episode.
Okay.
Okay. I suppose.
Well,
I suppose. All right, buffoons, that's it for today's episode.
buckle up because we've got another historical adventure waiting for you next time. Feeling hungry for more buffoonery? Or maybe you have a burning question or a wild historical theory for us to explore.
Hit us up on social media. We're History Buffoons Podcast on Reddit, X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also email us at historybuffoonspodcast@gmail.com.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and turn those notifications on to stay in the loop.
Until next time, stay curious and don't forget to rate and review us.
Remember, the buffoonery never stops.